means, please. I might eat some of it. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Peter Ambrose. Here. John Jones. Mary McCullough. Keith Varian. Bill Gerber. Here. Tim Lynch. Eric Newman. Here. No. Cindy Perham. Heather Dean. Alex Durrell. Robin Orris. Ron Pine.
Here.
Jennifer Hochberg. Here. Aaron Lopez. Here. Phil Pierce. Liz Esma. Here. Josh Garskoff. Ruth Smay. Carol Way. Here. Jay Wolk. Matt Ambrose. Hannah Gale. Pamela Jones. Ray Newberger. Tom McCarthy. Here. Mark McDermott. Here. Jill Vergara. Here. Karen Wackerman. Hank Ferentz. Here. Pamela Iacono. Here. Christine Messina. Here. Peter Tallman.
Here.
Brian Farnan. Drew Georgiadis. Here. Ken Lee. Here. Bill Perugini. Sam Cargill. Paul Fatabine. Michael Hurley. Eric Sunman.
Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And I ask that you remain standing in memory of First Selectman Mike Tetra's father, Fern, who passed away this week. Thank you all. Good evening. Today is Monday, April 3rd. The item on our agenda this evening is to consider proposed appropriations for the fiscal year July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, as recommended by the Board of Finance for any lawful purpose in the amount to be determined by the Board of Finance. May I have a motion to discuss? Representative McCarthy. Is there a second? Representative Messina. Excellent. The first item this evening is the summary budget presentation by the First Selectman. Mr. Tetro.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you and welcome. If you want to share the highlights of the budget, I know a lot has changed. We've all been put on notice to be keeping up with the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen joint meetings. And maybe you want to bring everybody up to speed where we are right now, or important highlights that you'd like us to know.
Forgive me, from a standpoint of the changes, I was out the last 2 days of last week. Unfortunately, I missed the Board of Finance meeting at that time due to my father's passing, so I don't have quite all the updates from that standpoint.
Anything you want to share with us then?
If you will, I will go back and kind of talk about a little bit of the roller coaster we've been on with the state. When you look at what we were originally handed, it was about a $16 million differential between last year and this year. And if I can, just to summarize, it was a $5 million reduction in state aid. That's aid that comes directly to the town in various programs, from educational cost sharing to pilot funds, that's payment in lieu of taxes. In addition to that, there was the potential $9 million cost transfer of teacher pension costs from the state to the town. So that $9 million plus $5 million comes out to about $14 million. There was an additional $1 million in monies that was not really aid, but it was money that was paid for our special education students for their residence costs. And I just want to explain this. It was money that went directly from the state to the organization that provided the residence. So it didn't go to the town in state aid. It didn't go to the Board of Ed in aid directly to them. and went directly to the organization. So it wasn't something we counted per se, but it did amount to about $1 million in cost. And then in addition, there's about $1 million in tax revenue we're not going to receive because of the Sacred Heart purchase of the General Electric property. So when you look at that, that's a $16 million gap that we had to make up. That was the biggest challenge in putting together this budget. And for those of you that have been following along, you understand that both the state aid, the $5 million cut there, we don't necessarily anticipate getting cut less than that, given the financial troubles of the state. And again, simply put, the state doesn't have enough money to fund all the programs they have. The biggest issue was probably the $9 million in terms of the pension costs. We have gotten, many different messages on that. We've gotten and I personally went up to visit with leadership in the House and the Senate on both sides of the aisle to sit down and talk and get an understanding from them as to what was taking place. We've gotten several different messages back, and Fairfield and other towns are dealing with this, and different towns use different approaches. Simply put, the guideline that we have followed here in Fairfield is that we'll use the best available information. That has, I want to say we've followed that guideline for about 10 years now. Back when I was on the Board of Finance, that's kind of what we agreed, and we've carried it through each year. Last year, as you may remember, it meant that we counted on getting a couple $1 million more in state aid than we thought we might get, because that was the best available information we had. We didn't take that cut ahead of time. We assumed we'd get the revenue. This year, it meant we assumed we'd get the cut because that was the best information we had available. Since that time, based on which version you want to listen to, the Speaker of the House has said, and quoted in the Current, that he didn't have enough votes to get the state, or the teachers' pension costs included in the transfer. A week later, he came out and said, maybe we'll have to phase it in as opposed to getting it. Quite a few towns, and the majority of towns that I've checked with, are not including the pension cost transfer. They're quoting their state delegation as saying that it won't happen. They're individual towns. You heard our state delegation come before the Board of Finance and really not be ready to commit to that. So there's been many different versions of what will actually happen. We still don't know yet. There's many different versions of when we will know. The budget from the state is due in June. I've heard estimates as late as September. So it's really a function of what the state does, how they do it. In any event, it will most likely be done after we vote and after we set the mill rate. The challenge in running the town, we're still talking with our chief fiscal officer and town attorney to see kind of what our options are. I believe this body will have an option as to when they actually vote, though you have to meet and do it. And the Board of Finance may also have an option as to when they actually set the mill rate. The challenge on both sides is that starting July 1st, we actually need money to run the town. So there's only so long we can delay those votes and still get tax bills out without complicating the lives for our residents by sending out multiple tax bills, which would be one option were it to change along those lines. So I'm not recommending anything at this point other than I think we have to seriously consider following our schedule and our path, because I think it complicates things very much for our residents. It will complicate the heck out of life for our town if the state comes back after we set our budget and after we set our mill rate and adjusts state aid or starts a phase-in of the pension cost issue or anything along those lines. From a personal standpoint, the pension cost issue is something I firmly believe needs to stay with the state. It's a problem. It's a program they set up. It's a program they have funded or not funded as they chose. It's a problem they have caused, and it's something they have chosen not to make any changes to and merely hand off the cost to the towns was the proposal at the time. And I think that is the worst part of the governor's proposal, as was put together. And I think in the long run, and the reason I am so concerned about that, if any part of that gets into the town budget, I believe in time we will get it all. The proverbial camel's nose in the tent, if you're familiar with that analogy. And second, it will be the fastest growing line item in our budget. So it's not what it does this year, it's what it will do every year there forward. And I think by transferring down to the towns, it allows the state not to make any changes to a program that is not sustainable from the state. So I know that's not something you can vote on, I know that's not something you can change, but since I was given the opportunity at the mic, I felt that I should offer that perspective as we go through this. Moderator, is that what you had in mind?
Yes,
or?
that's perfect. Does anybody have any questions for the first selectman? Great. Thank you very much for the highlights.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Opening the meeting. Next item is legal services. Attorney Lesser is here this evening. Good evening, Mr. Lesser. Before you get started, I should extend our condolences on the passing of your father as well. I'm very sorry to hear that.
Thank you very much. It's appreciated. I don't know what you'd like to hear. Last year, my current budget is $550,000. My request this year was $452,669. I believe it was the Board of Selectmen that cut it to $414,669. I think they cut around $38,000 out of the budget. I had asked for less this year because we got far fewer tax appeals last year than we had anticipated. 2015 was the reval year, and I think in 2010 we got about 200 actual appeals. This year we wound up with 37 that actually went to court. So I asked for less in that budget. That's primarily the difference.
Great. Any questions on legal services? Representative Agar.
It should not affect.
Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, Human Resources. Attorney Hipson's here.
Good evening. Emmett Hipson, Director of Human Resources. Thank you for allowing us time. This is my first budget presentation to the RTM, so hopefully I addressed what you are seeking. My understanding is that my administrative budget is what's before you tonight. So my administrative budget, when you take the wage-related items out of consideration, is about $87,000 currently. I had gone through the budget. There were 13 line items in the budget. I had gone through it. I had taken this exercise pretty seriously. I reduced that down to 9, and I had submitted a budget with a 2.52% reduction. In presenting that, reduced it from 11 to 9 line items, as I said. 5 items I had just held as the 3-year average. In presenting to the Board of Finance, the Board of Finance took an additional cut, and it's now an 8.66% reduction from fiscal year 17. The department, may or may not know, is responsible for recruiting, hiring, employee health care, retiree health care, defined benefit pension plan, defined contribution pension plan, employment-related laws including FMLA and FLSA, collective bargaining for the town contracts, risk management for both the town and the Board of Ed, and workers' compensation for both the town and the Board of Ed. It has 4 full-time employees, including myself, a risk manager, a benefits manager, an HR assistant, and 1 part-time secretary. The number that I had requested an increase for was for education and training. It's currently a 3-year average of $7,100. I had asked to increase that to $12,500. The Board of Finance felt that $7,100 was the appropriate amount. And so I would, I respectfully request that the RTM, if possible, see fit to add back to train those individuals for such important roles, but I will respect any decision the RTM makes in considering my administrative budget. Thank you.
Any questions on HR? Seeing none, this is a quiet group tonight. Thank you. Sorry. Next up is 1010, the First Selectman's Office. Mr. Tetra, I understand there was an increase in your department, but now there was some action taken by the Board of Finance. Were you able to be briefed by that? Do you know where
I
your
believe they reduced fees and professional services by $3,000. That was the one I heard of. I'm not sure if there are any others to that.
I think that's the one that I heard as well. Okay. Are there any questions on the First Selectman's Department? Excuse me. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Representative Georgiades, I'm sorry.
I attended the Board of Finance meeting, and can you describe, I believe the increase in your payroll was due to a change in designation of the position. Is that correct? And could you go into that?
Well, if you look back, there were,
And please explain the need.
yeah, the point of discussion was for one of the positions in my office, it was one, reclassified in terms of the amount of work that was being done. We had it evaluated by Director of Human Resources. It had been a requested reclassification actually while the prior Human Resources Director was here, but it was during the final couple months of her term, and it was one of the things that did not get done at that time. So it was one of the things we asked Mr. Hibson to do when he came on board. There was also a stipend that was included in that, and the stipend was because of stipend being different than a raise, because that's something that would go with a person. We have certain skills that are available in the person who's currently holding this office, who's helped with the website, with our Q Alert or constituent concern software, as well as training of the use of the website in department heads. And you may have seen that in terms of the amount of website pages we have now, one for each department, and the amount of information that's going out through that. We're using the website to make the town a lot more user-friendly, if you will, as well as things on building committees, and most obviously is the Penfield Building Committee that had an entire website set up and web pages set up for that. So that's something, the stipend is something that would, in essence, travel with the person. It's not part of my department or my this job description in the future. It is something that's being done by now. It was suggested at some point that that function might be taken over by IT, which in many places you would. It was taken over by my department because we didn't have the resources in IT at the time. But certainly from a long-term basis, I would expect that to happen. In the short term, this was the most cost-effective way to get the website implemented and get our department heads up and using it, and also on the constituent concern component to also make sure that software is been implemented and we've got our department heads trained in using that.
So, if the reclassification is necessary now because the IT support is not there, if the IT support did arrive, could you reclassify it down to?
Forgive me, two different issues. The reclassification has to do with the function, with the job, and what the work that position does on an ongoing basis. The stipend is separate, and that's related to the IT work. The stipend is what I would call something that will certainly would go away if this person left, because it's basically took advantage of the skills the person has to do it, and it may go away at some point when we transfer more of the function over to IT when they have the capability and function to do that. The job reclassification has to do with the position, the work being done, When this person was hired, we had HR do a review of the position and come up with a job description, but it has changed dramatically since then, and it was requested that we take a look at that again, and we did. Reclassifications come up from time to time in town. It's not all that often.
Thank you.
Representative McCarthy.
So, Mike, you partially answered my question, but this was obviously one of the concerns voiced by members of the Board of Finance, specifically having that headcount rolled into another department. And it sounds to me as though you've got more of a plan at this point in time to do that. Is that something that's going to take place in the near term?
In the near term, no. We haven't changed the skill set or headcount in IT. So in essence, there wouldn't have been anybody to roll that to. We have it working now. Right now, it's working very well. We have somebody trained who's working with our department heads on getting that done. So right now, it's the most cost-effective way to approach that. I want to be clear, we don't choose to expand that necessarily. That's not the goal. And if the issue is, we did this in terms of taking advantage of the skill set we had and a skill set and a headcount that was missing in the IT department at the time.
So at what point in the future do you envision that headcount moving over to IT or some other department?
At the moment, it's working fine, and we have we're not having an issue with it. And in fact, we've got a good ongoing training, if you will, and skill set development of the department heads in doing this. So I would assume that it would move at some point. There's no planned schedule for doing that. If perchance IT would expand at some point and could pick that up, we might look at that, but I have not talked to the new IT director about that, and I don't have any current plans, basically because it's working fine right now. But if there's a way to do it for less than, the stipend is $8,000 a year, if there's a way to do it for cheaper than $8,000, we'd do it tomorrow.
But the stipend's going to go away, and the stipend's got a finite time frame.
The stipend is basically, is started with these responsibilities and will stop with these responsibilities. It's not tied to a time frame per se. It's function of the responsibilities. When the responsibilities goes away, the money goes away.
Okay, so the stipends are open-ended at this point in time. It's not defined.
Correct. It's not. There are generally two types of stipends. One is that then we have somebody filling in for somebody who left. We might ask them to do more work. We might give them a stipend for the duration that until that position is replaced. In this case, it was a new function. So we have it on that point. At some point, we would transfer it to IT when they have the staff capability to pick it up, and it would go away from this office. Correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next item's 10:30, Town Clerk. Any questions for the Town Clerk? Seeing none, we'll let her continue being our clerk. Got off easy with this board, Mrs. Brown. Next item, 10:40, Fair TV. Good evening, Chairman.
Good evening. Great to see everybody.
Any highlights you want to share with us on the Fair TV?
I'll be real brief because I know you guys have a long agenda tonight. This will be my last meeting coming before the RTM as chair. My term will be expiring, so I first just wanted to note that it's been a great pleasure to serve on Fair TV, on the Fair TV Commission, and I hope everybody recognizes the strides that we've made in improving Fair TV over the course of about 18 months or so. Over the course of the past year, we have put together a strategic plan that looks 5 years ahead, that will help be kind of a guidepost for the commission moving forward. We've also done quite a few upgrades in technology, both in terms of cameras, but also in terms of improving our digital capabilities, consolidating our websites into one that over time will become increasingly user-friendly. And then finally, I think we are actively pursuing ways that we can add value to the community through partnerships, whether that's through programming or partnerships like what we've done with the library most recently, where we had roughly about 5-6 years of content, of meetings basically, that weren't particularly accessible to the public, and we purchased the server through our grant for the library, so now the Fair TV archives will be there for the public to come and see them. So as it relates to the budget for the fiscal year, I'm proud to say that Fair TV is on strong financial footing. We both did very well thanks to all of you through last year's budget. You guys had the confidence in Fair TV to invest a little bit more. And on top of it, we also exceeded our expectations as it relates to the grant. And so heading into this year, looking at the financial situation that the first selectman, I think, did a great job articulating, we thought that it was appropriate to be proactive in selecting a 5% decrease. It was a difficult decision, of course, but we feel like it was the right thing to do. In that time, we've also been able to rework a contract for our operations manager, Jerry Spino, so everything should be in good place from an operational perspective, and I look forward to your feedback.
Great. Any questions on Fair TV? Seeing none, I just want to thank you for all your service. You guys have really done a wonderful job under your leadership, so thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Next department, 1070, Register of Voters. Good evening, gentlemen. Any highlights you wish to share with the members this evening?
Say a couple words. Thank you. We didn't prepare a lengthy presentation. This is a local election year. A couple of things that are interesting that we're doing. You'll see a few drop-offs in the area of our training and certification as we complete those obligations that we have. We also have some increases in the area of ballot programming and some printing costs. This being a local year, we have a much more complicated ballot. As you know, many candidates sort of lead to additional costs. So if you have any specific questions, we'd be happy to field them.
Representative McCarthy.
Yes, would you speak to the increase in part-time payroll?
This is a salary increase that was provided by the Board of Selectmen. At the beginning of the term, it was effective January 1st of this year, and will be our salary, I guess, on an ongoing basis. That's part-time is the registrars, personally.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I didn't connect those.
Other questions? Representative Georgiadis.
Can you discuss the travel costs that you incur, and if the cuts in the travel that were decided by the Board of Finance go through, will you do less traveling, or how will that be handled?
Okay, we actually came to an agreement to reduce this by $1,000 prior to the Board of Finance's action. So this brings us very, very close to zero in terms of a travel budget. I will say that the Human Resources Department has been very willing to schedule with us further in advance than they historically have to allow us to use town vehicles for the things that we need to do. So I don't expect any disruption. It's more of a planning process where we have to make sure the town vehicles are available.
Thank you.
Other questions on the registrar? I have a question about your deputies. It's my understanding the state statutes read that if either of you were to resign in your positions, the deputy automatically becomes the registrar, is that correct?
It is.
How well-trained are your deputies? Are they in the office with you frequently? If either one of you were to step aside, can they step right in?
No. They have to be certified, which is a process I'm going through, and Matt has actually just finished the courses. I've got 2 to go, and there's 8 courses. Those I would highly recommend that a deputy would go through, but that's a cost of $1,600, so we didn't really want to go there. I guess the registrars could stand by and help as much as possible, but as far as training them, that would actually be something we'd have to incur as far as expense. We're trying to keep our expense down because so much was spent, and we have a special election, so we're trying to keep especially our part-time line, the seasonal payroll down, which is where our deputies would get paid. And we only have about 3,800 left, I think, which translates into $20 an hour for the deputies and $15 for assistants that we'll need for the special election. And we've already talked to Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance about the fact that we're trying to save that money, not spend any there, because if we do start to train them, we have to pay them. But there's quite a bit to learn. I can tell you that firsthand. I've been going through quite a bit.
Well, I just think for planning purposes, we need to, on future budgets, start to budget for that. You need to, I don't know how you're going to stay in compliance if those guys aren't up to training as well. How does this work? How long do you have to get trained? If for instance, one of you decides you're going to leave your spot and the deputy takes over?
I'll say that new registrars have a 2-year period to
Okay, so
obtain
it's
their
not
training and
immediate.
certification. Right now, and we haven't changed this for a few years now, we budget $5,000 for each deputy, $10,000 total, which amounts to about 250 hours throughout the year. You know, it's like your boards of finance and your boards of education, we stagger, right? I've been a registrar for a few years, Steve has been a deputy for a few years. And so by the time he became the registrar, you know, he's actually done basically all of the different things that a registrar needs to be exposed to. And so that's something that's ongoing, and his new deputy will, I think in time, have that same confidence. She was very valuable to us in the fall, participated in some of the trickier pre-election testing procedures that we do. So, you know, I appreciate that, and I think, you know, if this body would welcome the idea of us sending those deputies to sort of a greater amount of training than they do now, we'd certainly be glad to approach you with that next year.
Well, what about just being in the office and training more and following in your footsteps and shadowing more often? Is there wiggle room to do that?
The 250 hours a year translates, roughly speaking, into a day a week. So historically, what I've done has been to make like 1 day a week the deputy day, where the deputy will, for 4 or 5 hours, supervise the office on their own, field whatever calls come in, whatever problems come in. That's, you know, I think Steve and his deputy are still working out kind of what arrangement they want to have. But, you know, I think that we do try to find a way to get them up to speed as best we can.
Okay. And is there a way to be utilizing them more to help keep your overtime, your administrative overtime down?
Well, yeah, I mean, they get paid $20 an hour, the deputies and the assistants are 15, so we can work toward that. I mean, there are times when overtime's needed, but
Okay.
yeah, we can.
All right. Thank you.
I'll say just with overtime, what you'll generally have, because the office administrative secretary actually has a greater tenure than both of us combined in terms of working in the office. Sort of what you get with overtime is someone who doesn't need to really be trained in anything, which is kind of a great benefit to us in that way. With our deputies, what you have is sort of the ability to expand our like legal authority to other places. You have someone who can sign documents somewhere else, or who can perform specific mandated registrar duties somewhere else. So they do have something of a different function, but yeah, they are fluid to a certain extent at election season.
Well, I'm asking you to look at a different way and start to use less administrative overtime and use your deputies for more, because that's obviously a way to save some money. And I think they need to be able to get up to speed, considering the fact they need to step in should you two decide to do other things.
We will certainly come back to you with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Great. Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. Department 1090, Zoning Board of Appeals. Good evening, Mr. Wentz.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us. I'm guessing you're handling planning and zoning as well.
I am. For this particular budget, it's identical to last year's budget. I have nothing really exciting to say about that.
Any questions? Excellent. Planning and zoning, 1110.
The planning and zoning budget is fairly flat line from last year's budget as well, less than a 5%, or less than a 0.5% increase. The only thing that kind of catches the eye is the percentage increase in postage. That is due to a FEMA program that we've entered into this year that allows our residents who have flood insurance to qualify for 10% deductions in that flood insurance cost. One of the requirements of that program is to do a fairly extensive outreach mailing annually to the real estate community, the lending community, and to the folks in repetitive loss areas. We did that for the first time this past year, and that totaled a $1,500 effort. So that's going to be a cost going forward is to be eligible in this program.
Great. Any questions on this item? You have a question? Representative McCarthy?
On the longevity bonus, it does have an increase. I mean, it's a small amount of money. Is this, but I'm just looking back. It seems like a trend, moving up to 14, 15, an increase every year. Is there a reason for that upward trend?
I don't know the answer to that question, sitting here. It's a $300 difference. I don't know what that represents in this
the
budget.
money's not
Yeah,
the concern. It's what appears to be a trend I was wondering about.
Okay. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Maybe when Linda Gardner's here on Wednesday, follow up with her. All right, we'll check with the budget director. Oh, sorry, Mr. Tucker.
Sure.
Just wanted to clarify for everybody that the top two lines in each department's budget, especially the ones concerning payroll and costs like Social Security and longevity, are put together by the finance department, not by the department heads. So as the moderator mentioned, any questions along those lines should be asked to finance departments. Linda Gardner specifically can clarify those.
Any other questions? Representative Way.
Carol Way, District 5. I just have a question which really doesn't relate to the budget, but I'm curious about something that was suggested in connection with affordable housing, the accessory apartment ruling that I do believe comes under Zoning Board of Appeals. And has there been any move at all to make changes with that in terms of counting the accessory apartments that are currently being used in our town that, you know, according to the Zoning Board of Appeals, they're not legal, but we know they're there. And they really would add to our affordable housing stock. And if there's any move to change some of that law.
Representative Way, I'm sorry, but that's not tied into the
It's not,
budget.
okay.
Anybody else? It's a great question. Unfortunately, it's just not part of the budget discussion. Seeing no one else, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Conservation, 1230. Mr.
Good evening.
Carey, welcome, sir.
So we put together what I think is a pretty lean budget over previous years. We were actually down 11.5% as opposed to the last fiscal year. Basically, we've been kind of reorganizing a little bit the way we do things, plus also looking at contractual obligations that we previously had with the state and federal government, and seeing if we could have renegotiated some of those deals that were in place, which we have, and actually went and defunded a part-time position that we previously had. So we're looking at doing things a little differently than we had in the past, and we've been able to achieve a savings, as you can see in the budget that we put forward. But I can take any questions or any comments.
I'd just like to open by saying thank you for looking at your department in another way and looking at ways of restructuring. It's exactly, in my opinion, where we need to be going with all departments. Anybody have any questions? Representative Lee.
Yep.
My pleasure. So I'm looking at the budget line for, now I forgot where I was. Yeah, maintenance went down like a third. Can you kind of, I'm a maintenance guy, so I'm kind of wondering what that actually.
So that's actually one of the contracts that we had previously with the USGS, which is the United States Geological Service. They actually run river gauges on the Mill River and Rooster River. And the data is used occasionally by engineering department and also professional engineers. But there's a history of data there, and they were actually charging the town about $22,000 the previous year to maintain those river gauges. So I actually talked to them and said, you know, this is more than we can handle. And that program actually is suffering cuts from the federal level too. So we tried to come up with an understanding to maybe there would be some joint maintenance, but it looks like that was going away anyways. It may be something that they look at again in the future, but the data, you know, it's been, those river gauges have been operating for about 30 or 40 years, so there's a lot of data, and that historical data is available. So while there is a loss there, it's not something that will directly impact the town, because the historical data is available, and it's used relatively little in our day-to-day operations.
Sounds like a job well done.
Anyone else? Representative McDermott.
Thank you. In just reviewing this vacant crewman position, do you expect that to be coming back, or is this something that's going to be eliminated entirely?
I'm not going to lie, I would like to request it come back. I mean, there is, you know, understanding the budget of this year, and the sacrifices that the town needs to make it a whole. You know, that position was actually vacant from someone had resigned in October, so when it came forward, you know, that was obviously some low-hanging fruit. You know, the person had resigned in October, going into the winter. You know, most of the maintenance we do is obviously outside in open spaces. I thought I could get through that, knowing that there was actually a budget shortfall in the current fiscal year. So when we were asked to tighten our belts a little bit more, that was obviously something that that was easy to give up going forward. I'm not going to say that that doesn't hurt, you know, going forward. You know, we do have a very maintenance-intensive department as far as, you know, picking up trash and doing those types of duties. We do have seasonal staff, and we're also looking at doing things more efficiently. So it may be a request, you know, in the future, and that's why we basically put the position in there. We defunded the position but kept it in there.
Yeah,
Now,
so-
I understand next year is a harder budget, so I'm not naive to think that that's going to be a hard request, but at the same time, you know, I'd rather see where we are this time, you know, in the budget process next year in February, and see if that's realistic. And if it's not, I'm already at this, I'll keep a flat budget, but you know, going for this year, I felt that that was something that was appropriate.
This is just salary around $55,000 you're saving, so with social costs, how much is it
I mean,
approximately?
so, you know, I don't know off the top of the head, again, as Mike said, the finance portion of the budget, but, you know, I
What's
think
generally social costs, 10, 20, what's it?
I'd say almost 30% on top of, the, you know, but I don't
So
want to...
you're saving around $70,000 on this
Well,
one.
actually, no, from my understanding, and maybe the first selectman can help clarify, and to be honest, I didn't know Linda Gardner wasn't going to be here tonight, I just thought Mr. Mayor wasn't going to be here. But my understanding is that the Conservation Department came forward, proposed the vacancy hold, they froze the salary, or in a sense defunded the salary, but they held the money for, in the internal service fund for benefits.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Senator Gerber.
Hi, Bill Gerber, District 2. I just have an informational question. Can you explain how your expenditures are sort of linked to the number of applications to build on wetlands, and whether or not that's sort of a stable number, or would that cause a big variance if applications go up?
So you're saying how does our revenue backfeed our department, basically? Is that...
Your expenses, you know, to sort of do studies on wetland areas and things like that.
So when we pull in permits, any applications we get, that money actually goes into the general fund. So we basically try to manage our department in a way that we are paying for 100% of the inland wetland program, meaning that if someone comes in and basically files an application, that the time spent on that application is being covered by the cost of the fees we receive. But that money is, you know, it's like any revenue that comes into the town, it basically goes into the general fund. It does not go into our particular department.
Thank you. So you're saying that applications for permits are basically neutral to the bottom line?
We again, I can't control the amount, you know, from one year to the next, but we try to set it so that we're operating, you know, the inland wetland program is basically paying for itself. Now, some years we're over that amount, and some years we're below it, but over time, it basically, you know, trying to keep with the fact that we fund ourselves 100% or pay for that program.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. 1350, Community and Economic Development. Good evening, Mr. Barnhart. How are you?
Good.
What have you brought us this evening?
The budget before you represents a very slight decrease over the current year. Some reductions to several accounts to offset increase in salary and benefit lines. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions on economic development as it's related to the budget? Representative Georgitis.
While this question isn't particularly in the budget, I know you work with community development block grants, and will this impact our budget this year? There's a lot of talk about the community development block grant, which I believe we receive $500,000 annually through the community development block grant. Do you see this impacting fiscal 17-18 or 18-19? And can you just address that potential loss of revenue? Thank you.
Yes, there's been quite a bit of discussion about the federal budget process. There has been several proposals or a proposal set forth to either reduce substantially or eliminate the community development block grant program. We do have one staff position that's fully funded through the grant, and we obviously administer a number of programs to assist our low moderate income population and census tract areas throughout town. Those programs would cease to exist if that funding were eliminated. Obviously, we would have to deal with any reductions. The budget is, shall we say, fluid. We're in the process right now of planning for the Community Development Block Grant for program year 43, which would begin in October, coincident with the federal fiscal year. And we've asked all of our recipient agencies to plan based on no increase or change over the current year's budget. But we'll wait and see, we're kind of waiting and see where we are with regard to the federal budget process and discussions in Washington.
So to follow up, the only impact to this budget might be that,
Well, there would be no
impact.
impact to the budget if funding were eliminated. The staff position that's fully funded out of the grant would have to be eliminated as well. And those programs and recipient agencies that receive funding through the Community Development Block Grant Program would also be reduced or eliminated.
thank you.
Representative McCarthy.
Mark? To follow up on that question, so on page 127 of the budget book, we see the administrative assistant here, 39.5 per year. Is that the line item funded by the block grant?
No, that position is mostly funded through the general fund. You can see 3/4 of the salary and benefits are funded through the general fund, and 1/4 is funded through the downtown employee parking program, which this person administers on behalf of the town.
Okay. So is this .75 FTE, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the funding is, although I can't see it here, it's part of it's coming from is a state grant. Is that correct?
The other quarter is coming from parking fees that are paid by downtown business owners.
I got it. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? Representative Gerber.
Mr. Barnhart, thank you so much. Bill Gerber, District 2. Have you ever done an analysis of what sort of payback you think you might have with a larger office, more people, you know, in terms of sort of aggressive marketing of the town to try to bring in
You mentioned
commercial properties, not grants, commercial properties.
Yes. The current year budget in the fees and professional services line, you provided funding for to enable the Economic Development Commission to create an economic development plan working with our business community and other stakeholders, which we're very close to completing. Part of those recommendations going forward, funding that we have in next year's budget would be to implement some of those recommendations, which might include things such as a market analysis, specifically focused on Commerce Drive area, Fairfield Metro Center site, and other larger developments to help inform not only our Planning and Zoning Commission, but other elected and appointed officials in terms of the benefits of some of those projects.
So next year, we might see an investment in this department then?
Well, we don't fully control whether or not folks make those investments or not. All we can do is create circumstances as favorable to allow for that investment to occur as possible.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I meant an investment in your department to, you know, have greater capabilities and more
Yes.
of a longer reach. You know.
Yes, we've spent more time, I think, in the last few years enhancing our communications and marketing portion of what our department does, and I think that effort will continue going forward.
Anyone else? Representative White. You've got that mic down
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
I'm just curious, and I do think that this is connected with the budget. Okay. The website that was developed for tourism.
Yes.
For the town of Fairfield, which I think is great, and I wholly support it. I'm wondering if you've been able to get any reading on feedback in connection with that.
It's pretty early. Actually, this year is the first year we've actually spent some time doing some advertising, some further brand recognition around the website, and that effort will continue. Part of our work with our hospitality and tourism partners is to, the bottom line is to see whether or not some of those metrics change going forward, whether they see increased visits or duration of stays, and that's the same type of information that the state is tracking. So we're looking to see, we obviously do track visits to the website, a number of the time which people spend on the website, number of click-throughs, those types of things. But ultimately, the whole effort is focused on the outcomes that we look to see is increase in visitation, increase in dollars spent locally for the local economy.
And certainly your restaurant weeks have done some of that.
Yes, and again, we, as a matter of course, with each of our programs, we typically do a post-event survey of our business partners to see what we could be doing differently, doing better, and how they fared. And the feedback generally has been positive, such that we would continue to make those investments going forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yep. Representative Durrell.
Yes. Hi, I'm Alex Durrell, RTM 3. The fees and professional services, I'm not sure if I want to, why have they gone up fivefold or sixfold? I may have been missing something from 2 years ago.
Well, actually, from the current year, they're going down as I indicated.
Right, but from 2 years ago, I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Why would they have gone from 5,700 to 40,000, and then from 40,000, you know, it looks good that there's a 25% cut, but from 5,700 to 30,000 is about a 600% increase.
As I indicated, this past year, current year, we requested and received funding to allow the Economic Development Commission to create an economic development plan, which is, I believe, the first time that that's been done, at least in recent memory. We are requesting some additional some funding going forward to implement some of the recommendations of that plan, and to do some of the other work that has been talked about in terms of our outreach and communications with our business community. So we've been asked to make those investments. We thought that it's better to use, augment in targeted areas, make those investments in targeted ways rather than increase staffing. It was just a more efficient, cost-effective way to do that.
Okay. Also, are we strengthening our relationships with higher education, be it Sacred Heart and Fairfield University? Because frankly, they're making money and we aren't.
Yes, we've been working closely with both Sacred Heart and Fairfield U. Both are...
What quantifiable evidence do we have of that?
Well, both are members of our tourism and hospitality committee that we've established, and we've also been working with both organizations as to ways in which, and a recommendation of the Economic Development Plan is looking for further ways in which we could leverage the work that they do to support small business development. With regard to Fairfield U, we have had a long-standing, or at least the last several years, we began a partnership related to creating a small business accelerator or incubator space downtown, and we are a partner in their small business startup event, which is actually occurring this Thursday. So those efforts will continue, and we'll hopefully build upon those and strengthen them with not just Fairfield, but Sacred Heart as well.
And if I might add to that, we also had our first strategic planning session with Fairfield U, where their senior management team and our senior management team got together, talked about the relationship, talked about how we can work together. what services they could provide to the town to help us on a cost-effective basis from that standpoint. From a standpoint of Sacred Heart, we've had ongoing discussions with them around this whole GE issue and what's taken place, and looking for ways we can work together to mitigate the income loss to the town as part of that. Just from an ongoing dialogue, I've been meeting with each president individually for the last 2 or 3 times a year for the past, ever since I took office. So that's kind of been an ongoing discussion, and I think certainly for those of you that were part of the 375th celebration, you saw how much they both got involved in that and came out to support the town as part of that. But there are a number of issues. In fact, when we sat down with Fairfield U, I was surprised at all the different areas that they're helping out and involved in. Some are not necessarily high visibility. If they're doing a program helping some kids out in a soccer program or girls basketball program or something like that, it might not something that makes the headlines, and we may not all be aware of that. So when we sat down and took inventory of that, I was actually surprised how many different areas we're already working on. We're trying to grow that, and the reason for getting the leadership groups together was to talk about the future. What do we do? How do we take it to the next level?
Okay, I would say the letter that I read by the Sacred Heart president was kind of a wishy-washy letter about wanting to help the town out. I was kind of disappointed by what he had said. Basically, don't tread on us is kind of the image I got from him. And also, I mean, it seems like they're both very financially helpful. If we can figure out a way for them to help us out a little bit more right now, it can't hurt. Also, a couple of years ago, what's going on with the train station? The Metro?
That's not really budget related.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Give me a call, I'll be happy to talk.
Thank
Fill you
you.
in on Fairfield Metro.
Anybody else? Seeing none? Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Barnhart. Next up, Finance, 3030 Purchasing.
Good evening. My name is Gerald Foley. This is my first time.
Welcome, Mr. Foley. I think this is your first budget hearing with us.
Yes, my first budget hearing. So what I did is I went through the budget, again, my first time through, and I went through and made some modest cuts. So I'm presenting a budget of approximately 2.79% increase. But majority of the item relates to payroll, that's the increases. Sorry. I wanted to mention this, my first time going through the budget, and what I've done is that based on my review, the budget I presented is a 2.79% increase, and the majority of it has to do with payroll increases.
Sorry about that. Any questions for purchasing? Seeing none, we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
1050 Administrative Services. Oh, is that you too, Gerald? Sorry.
For the administrative services budget, what I did is, formerly this office reported to purchasing, but now the 2 part-time employees actually work for the first selectman's office. So what I did is I went through the budget and went through and made there's substantial decreases in items that in reviewing expenditures. So you'll see it's a 0.74% decrease.
Decrease is good. Thank you. Any questions on administrative services? Seeing none, thank you. All right, thank you. Next up, 3050 assessor. I'm really sorry, but if you're near a mic, you can't talk because we're picking up all the chatter. you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself for everyone.
Ken Carvel, the deputy assessor here. And the most glaring thing within the budget, or moving the needle, if you will, was the fees and professional services, which is on the downward trend. We're now removed from the revaluation, and with that, anticipating less need. We had over 300 Board of Assessment appeals last year. We just got through the Board of Assessment this year, and we had 125. So that was the reasoning behind the reduction there. And then on the upside, we did have assessor software, which was largely due to maintenance fees, licensing, as well as expanded services. As we become acclimated to the new software, we utilize it in a more enhanced way and venture down a few more paths, if you will. And the other, from a percentage basis, there was an increase in the transportation, and that was largely due to the fact that we were using a natural gas vehicle that became obsolete. We couldn't use it anymore. And then I started driving around a Crown Vic. And so needless to say, that's where a lot of that movement went, from a percentage standpoint.
Good,
And
good to know.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell, I think.
Any questions for the tax assessor, Representative McCarthy? Oh, yeah.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, how are you?
Haven't talked to you for a few days. Question for you here, and I suspect First Selectman may come to the mic on this. We've talked about a permanent replacement for Don Ross. At this point in time, I'm curious, I see his position in the budget, but I don't see any adjustment here, and to my knowledge, there's not a replacement for Don as of this point in time.
I need your help on this one. I must admit, an awful lot of this was formatted by Mr. Ross, and with that, I'm not really sure on the, I studied up on all the other little line items, if you will, but when it comes to salary, I did not dig into that.
Our search is ongoing.
Okay, but given the fact that it's open, should I see, I mean, it appears as though we budgeted for a full-time employee, but there's none in that position.
On one hand, we're in the process of hiring a tax collector, or a tax assessor.
Yep.
It is budgeted as a full-time position. We fully anticipate hiring a full-time person.
Okay. All right, just curious, since there's no, I expect to see an adjustment of some way, because theoretically it would be a partial year. We're already partway through the year. Is the number I see here adjusted for? Well, I'm sorry. I take that back.
We still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
The difficulty is we still have a ways to go between now and June 30th. We fully expect to hire that person as soon as we can. So.
All right. Fair enough. Thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for pinch hitting.
Thank you.
3090, tax collector. Lots of new faces. Welcome, sir. Please introduce yourself for us. Welcome to Fairfield.
Good evening, everyone. First off, I look around, I see 40 or so faces that I don't even recognize, and you probably say the same about me. So first off, I want to say that I'm Dave Klazuski. I'm the new tax collector for the town of Fairfield. Prior to this time, I was tax collector for the town of Berlin for about 4 years. And I've been with the town of Fairfield now for about a month, and my first impressions being an individual that is not from the town, I'm not even from the area. I've actually been driving an hour and a half each way just to get here. So very dedicated, very motivated, very happy to be here. But I want to say my first impressions, I've been very impressed with the town. Typically, when I'm sitting in my office, whether it was in Berlin or in Fairfield, when my staff turns to me and says, hey, someone's here or a taxpayer's here and they want to see the tax collector, that's like the absolute worst thing I could ever hear. It's just, all right, there's a number of things running in my head. Okay, what could they possibly want? But I know it can't be good. And so this has happened to me twice now, even though I've only been here for a month. One time over the phone, one time in person, and both times have been positive, which has really impressed me because that was not the situation for me in my previous town. I had an individual come to me at the counter and said, I just wanted to say, I come in, your staff is laughing, not because they're fooling around and not doing their job, but it's because they're getting along, they're exhibiting a positive attitude, and it's contagious. People come into the tax office, they think of it as the dentist, they think of it as the history class that they hated in high school, but when they walk in, when we have a positive attitude, it makes them act positive as well. Same thing, I had a positive encounter over the phone. We had an individual with a very tough situation. They didn't understand why they owed the car tax bill, why they couldn't register their car, but one of my staff members walked them through it, was very patient with them, even though they were hysterical on the phone, and they helped them through it, and she was very grateful that they were patient and took the time with her. So I just wanted to say that, I've been here for a month, but I've been very impressed with the staff that I have. I'm very grateful for the staff that I have. We have a lot of mechanisms in place already, such as allowing taxpayers to make payments to people's bank during collection periods, which I think is a great, it's a great convenience for taxpayers. Recently, my supervisor, the Chief Fiscal Officer, Bob Mayer, had come up with the idea of instituting a self-service kiosk for credit card payments. And this is a thing, in many municipalities, you cannot pay with a credit card when you pay your taxes. And in the year 2017, that's hard for people to comprehend. How can you not pay with a credit card for anything? And there's a fee associated with it, and the town, like most towns in the entire state, they do not absorb the cost, so the cost is passed on to the taxpayers, and it's done through the internet, through the phone. So we have to turn people away and say, no, you have to go home, you have to go on your phone, you have to call the 1-800 number, and now we have this self-service terminal in our lobby that allows people to pay, and it's been a very positive experience. I've had people come into my office and say, I've waited 2 hours in line at the DMV just to be told that I have to walk away and go pay my taxes. And the last thing that I want to tell that person when they say they've wasted 2 hours at the DMV is, hey, waste another 2 hours and go home and pay with a credit card because you don't have cash on you. So I was able to walk them up to the kiosk. I was able to walk them through the process. They were able to pay their taxes with a credit card. And we also offer the ability to register their car online now right at the kiosk because the DMV has upgraded their system. So we've created a process in the office where it's one-stop shopping. People can come to our office. They can pay with a credit card if they need to for their taxes. We can clear them instantly so that the DMV knows it right away, or they can register online at our office. So it's kind of one-stop shopping. They can, kill two birds with one stone. So I've kind of rambled on for a long time, but I just wanted to talk about how impressed I am with the staff and how impressed I am with the technology and the mechanisms that we have in place, because these are things that I didn't have in my previous town. So I'm very grateful and very happy for what we have here.
Great, thank you. Questions for the tax collector? Seeing none? I know. I really liked history.
We have a great time.
History minor. Thank you very much for being here tonight, and welcome to Fairfield.
Any budget questions? I didn't even touch upon that.
No, we're good. Just keep collecting the taxes. Keep it at 99%.
I think I saw some
Right. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Zezima. I feel like we need to ask.
Yeah. Can't let me off the hook, right?
Liz Asma, District 4. So can you explain to me what, in your world, is advertising?
So advertising is, it's mandated by statute. So we collect taxes in Fairfield 4 times a year. So by law, I have to post a legal notice 12 times a year technically. So every 4 quarters, it's done 5 days before taxes are due, 7 days after, 5 days before they're delinquent. So it's a formality. It is something that by law we have to put. And we put it in the, is it called the Minuteman Press? And we utilize that, because it gets the most exposure. It is something that is, I believe it's published once a week and it's free and it's delivered to every home. So we try to make it as accessible as possible. I also publish the legal notice on the website as well.
So the 1/3 reduction, how was that calculated?
So the reduction was, from what I understand with the previous collector, there was a confusion with a locked-in rate that we had of $189 per quarter. And so they originally budgeted for $600 because they had quoted us for a higher price, and then they were able to bring it back to the original locked-in rate.
Great. Any other questions? Representative McDermott.
Mark McDermott, District 7. Welcome to town.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. We're going to be needing some money this year probably. Just wondering how you're going to handle, or if there's a new way to get these delinquent taxes paid up.
Well, when I look at the revenue side of the budget, I do see that there is a 101% increase in the prior year collections. And I have to admit that the prior year collections are slightly down, not too much, but they are down. So the thought is that we would do another tax sale. It has been discussed. It has, the assumption is that with the increase that is one of the avenues that we would take. I have done a tax sale myself with the town of Berlin with the same tax sale attorney that the town of Fairfield used right around the same time, about 4 or 5 years ago. So I am familiar with the process, and I'm a firm believer in doing the process in a fair, doing it not too aggressive, but also not too conservative. So, we're not just going to take a list and then just hand the list to the attorney. We're going to look at the list carefully. We're going to be very fair. We're going to, do the best we can to treat everything, to treat everyone fairly and do what's right to bring in the money for the town.
So, after me, sir. You would obviously, before you did that, you would notify the resident that we're going into a tax sale, or you've had a negotiation with them?
Yes.
Before
yes,
you
that's
got
correct.
involved with the tax attorney? And obviously, does he get a percentage of the sale, or how does that work?
Yes, the tax attorney, so there's no out-of-pocket costs to the town. He charges the hourly rate, which I actually think is a fairer process. I did work for the town of Southington in the past. They used a state marshal who charged 15%. So basically, if you owned a 1-story ranch, or if you owned a 2-story colonial, whether you paid off your delinquent taxes within 2 months or within 5 months, you were paying based on the amount of taxes you owed and not on how soon you paid. With the hourly rate, it's not about the sooner you pay, the less you pay. So if the tax sale attorney sends out letters and you redeem your property within the first month, you're going to pay obviously a less of a fee to the attorney than if you let it drag out and go the full 6 months to the point where it goes to the tax sale auction.
Thank you.
Representative Georgiades. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I can wait. I see to the representative from District 9.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Representative from District 9. I'm Drew Georgiadis from District 9. I'm unfamiliar with the term tax sale. Is that when you waive fees and fines to encourage people to pay their tax?
No, so the tax sale process, nothing is waived. Basically, it's not a process to drive people out of their homes. It's a process to get the money that's owed to the town. By state statute, we're not allowed to waive any of the fees, whether it be the lien fees, the interest, any of the principal. But the tax sale, it's a process that can take upwards of 6 months. I don't know the exact time frames off the top of my head, but there's certain procedures that the attorney has to follow. He has to notify, obviously, the owner, any lien holders involved, so any mortgage companies, anyone that has a stake in the property, they have to be physically notified by certified mail. There has to be notices in the newspaper. And then say, if they don't redeem the property once the notices go out, someone can purchase that property at auction for the beginning price, which would be the taxes owed. If there is a bid on it and there's an excess, the excess goes to the owner that would lose it. But again, if they lose it at auction, there's a 6-month redemption period. So in essence, there's about a 12-month period for the owner that's subjected to the tax sale to redeem their property. Because again, the goal is not for these people to lose their homes. The goal is to get the taxes paid.
So the term sale is not a reduction for the homeowner. It's a notification that their property will be
Going to sale or going to auction.
Thank you.
Representative Farnan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Now, this is a tougher topic, and obviously, the fiscal situation of the state is kind of dire right now. And one of the things that kind of popped out to me here in my review was with all the technological advances we have, with People's United as an option to also pay online. And you look at the fact that headcount has stayed the same, but there seems that there would be some synergy or way to potentially lower headcount here with those other potential avenues for payment of taxes. Could you kind of give me your thoughts on that, or?
As far as lowering staffing, or?
Yes, because of those technological advantages, or what do you do with that freed up time, because there are other avenues and outlets to pay taxes now as opposed to.
Yep. My only initial concern with that is tax collection by nature is a very confusing. It's a very confusing thing. We work on a grand list year. A lot of people think we're on a calendar year. Like the general questions historically never go away. So I agree with technological advances. I certainly wouldn't I wouldn't turn away, and I would keep an open mind to that fact and look into the avenue of going that route. But I also would look at the other side of things, which is to constantly think of ways to maintain our staffing by providing added services. For example, we're taking on, we now collect sewer assessments and sewer use in the office, and we've taken on a lot of the more simple administrative duties, such as doing the ownership changes for them, the mail returns for them. But another thing, I am the co-chair of the State Legislative Committee for the Tax Collectors Association, so I do monitor proposed bills that are up in Hartford. One of them, it did fail this year, but it's the second year that it's been proposed, so I know that it's not going away, but there is a proposal to allow municipalities to renew registrations on behalf of the DMV. And I would be all for that, and I would view it as, an added convenience for the residents of Fairfield. And, my staff is ready and willing to take on additional duties. Not to say that they're sitting around with nothing to do, but they're a very motivated staff. So I look at it that way. I try to look at different ways that we can add to our office because we are like the front lines. The tax office is the front lines. We're the office that sees the residents the most. So what else can we take on to make their life easier so that they don't have to go from department to department or playing phone tag? What can we do so they come to us and they get everything done when they're at our office? I'm not, that's not me saying I'm opposing what you're saying. I'm saying I always weigh all options.
Okay. And I say this with only having had positive experiences with the tax collection office, so it's in no way a reflection on the level of service that they provide. I just saw that there is may potentially, with these technologies that are out there and that are currently being used even with, the last couple of years within the department, there may be an opportunity there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
$3110, information technology. That's smacked with my frustration and needing glasses to see everything on the planet now. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Dave Kelly, and I'm your new town IT director.
Excellent. Welcome, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
What would you like to share with us this evening?
Well, I started on December 5th and began building this budget on December 6th. So my knowledge of history is a little on the weak side, but I did go back a couple of years through the IT budgets and purchase orders and whatnot to build this budget from zero up to what it is. What I learned is that not counting the salary lines, a little more than 3/4 of the IT budget goes to just maintenance costs, telephone lines, software licensing, things like that. The remainder we spend on things like PCs to refresh our PCs. We replace a PC after 5 years of use, rather than putting them on a maintenance contract of some sort. Our department is four staff members. We have a systems administrator, a help desk PC technician, and 2 programmer analysts that support roughly 500 computers in town and roughly 500 users. This year our budget is down quite a bit. I wish I could take the blame for that, but it's due to a number of other things that have occurred. The town purchased a Microsoft Enterprise agreement 2 years ago. The upfront cost for doing that is higher than the ongoing maintenance costs. It's a purchase that's done over 3 years. This spring is the 3rd and final payment for this upfront purchase of the agreement. Going forward, we will only be paying maintenance on the software. So that's part of the decrease that we see this year. The Chief Fiscal Officer also negotiated a favorable contract with our Enterprise Resource Planning System vendor for a fixed price for 3 years. It's slightly less than what the town was paying previously. And finally, we upgraded disk storage this year, bought new storage systems for data storage. Those systems came with a 3-year warranty, so we don't have to pay maintenance costs on the new storage systems for the next couple of years.
Great. Anybody have any questions on IT? Representative McCarthy and then Representative Jones. Pam Jones.
Hi, Pam Jones. Sorry.
That's okay. Pam, if you'd like to speak first, that's fine with me.
That's okay.
All right. To what extent are the town's data processing needs cyclical? Are there peaks and troughs?
No, not really. I came from a university environment where we did have a cycle. In the summer, things were kind of dead, and then we had 2 semesters of students that would require more time and energy and effort to support people and things like that. And I've only been here for a few months, so I haven't observed a full year, but the town runs all the time. I mean,
okay, so the question I was getting at was to what extent do you feel a town should be in the business of buying and refreshing servers as opposed to renting server use or storage space on the cloud?
Well, actually, we do have quite a few items in the cloud now. We buy our Enterprise Resource Planning System as a software as a service system. Okay. But there are many cases where it's actually less expensive to do it ourselves. And some of our software is not, some of the town software, the tax systems, things like that, don't lend themselves to running in the cloud.
Right, so what's the, getting to my point, what's the mix? What, to what percent of the data processing needs can be done in the cloud, and what percent can be done in-house on town-owned servers?
I would say it's about 50-50 right now.
Okay, and to what extent do you feel it's sufficient for the town to be refreshing servers, and what's the time frame on which you would do that?
The servers, we tend to run a little long. PCs, we run about 5 years. We have a 5-year refresh cycle. Servers, we run a bit longer. We go 7 or so.
Really?
Yes. And we are virtualizing our servers. So what that means is that we can, even if one server were to fail, we can continue to operate. It's not like we used to do it where we had an application running on an individual server and you worried about the reliability and age of one single device. When we virtualize our servers, they run in a private cloud, so to speak. And if one server were to fail, we can transfer that load to the remaining servers. Things might run a little more slowly because we're missing some of the power of our private cloud. But it's a temporary situation until we can repair the server.
Logical partitioning, I assume?
I'm sorry?
Logical partitioning?
Well, in virtualization, each application looks and feels like it's running in its own server, even though it's sharing the same mechanical machinery with several other applications.
Right, but logical partitioning?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Hi, Pam Jones, District 6. Yeah, my question is about the IT software line. And I think you're referring to the enterprise software. Is that the contract?
The line, yeah, that's the Microsoft 3-year purchase. We made the final payment this spring. And next year, we'll only be paying a maintenance cost on that software.
So that covers a license fee for the intellectual property?
It's all of the Microsoft operating systems, server operating systems, database services, upgrade rights to the client operating systems, things like that.
But we're talking
Office.
about software, so
Yes.
the intellectual property rights to the software.
Yes.
The license fee to cover.
Yes.
And how long a term is that contract?
Well, going forward, it'll be a year-to-year maintenance contract. Each year we'll pay.
So
a
it rolls
maintenance
over year to year at a cost of about $360,000 every year, then? Is that, I'm asking about the contract that you entered into. We're both contract
Well,
lawyers.
okay, wait a minute. The contract was for the ERP system. That's the Munis ERP system. We split half of that cost with the Board of Education. That is a 3-year contract, and we're just starting the first of those 3 years now.
Okay, so
And that is paid out of the software services line, whereas the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement is paid out of the IT software line.
Okay, so basically how much are you paying for your software license?
Which one?
Well, all in.
I haven't added it up in my head. It's roughly 3/4 of our budget is paying for various software packages.
Yeah, and the, okay, I just wanted to ask another question, and that is, the communications line item, what does that represent?
That represents the metro area network that connects our 29 town sites together, and it's the town phone bills.
And do you negotiate, so this software contract, that covers the whole town and various departments? But what we were chatting about is that there are other departments have software budgets within them.
Right. The, IT pays for software that's shared by all the departments, but a couple of years back, the individual software that's unique to a department was moved from the IT budget out to each department. So, for example, we use QDS for our tax collecting. Well, that's now in the tax collector's budget. It's no longer in IT's budget. But the Microsoft operating systems and databases and the ERP system that does the HR, payroll, accounts, things like that, those are shared by all departments in town. Those come out of the IT budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Fairfield. Next up, Culture and Recreation, 7050 Parks and Recreation. Welcome, Mr. Calabrese. Thank you for hosting us in this fine facility this evening.
Thank you, and good evening to everybody. Ready when you are.
All right, have anything you want to share with us in particular on Parks and Recreation?
Not right off the bat. We've pretty much held status quo in this budget. You'll see mainly contractual agreements are the main reason for anything going up. In most cases, our budget went down.
Okay. Anybody have a question on 7050 Parks and Rec? Sure, Representative Parham.
Good, how are you?
Cindy Parham, District 2. Have there been any repairs to the Kiwanis ball field in the past few months?
I would ask Mr. Michelangelo to come up if he is around.
Is that related to the budget?
I'm not sure. I thought,
Well,
is that something in the budget? Is that part of the budget? I don't have it in front of me.
I'll let Michelangelo explain.
So this is the 90-foot baseball diamond?
Yeah, I know just before the other director left, there were some repairs that were getting bids, and I was wondering if they were completed or if they were planning when the ground was warmer and...
Okay. The baseball field at the Kiwanis was redone prior to last baseball season. That's where the Ludlow High School plays. So the whole infield was done. That was very good. And the other side of the parking lot, between the where there's the soccer fields there and the Pop Warner field, there wasn't any substantial work done, but between the aeration and the fertilization, those are in very good shape too. So there was no capital project other than the work that was done to the baseball field, and that's in very good condition.
Yeah, I remember the field, but I remember before Jerry Lombardo left, there were a couple things like batting, like places where they put their bats and the dugouts. Anything within the field was the town's responsibility, like overgrown weeds and the scoreboard that had some defects. So I could always just go to your office and take a look.
Yeah, those items I'm not familiar with specifically.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Representative Tallman.
Hi, Peter Tallman, District 8. Along the lines, for what it's worth, Ludlow was supposed to play 2 away baseball games this week. Neither field could be played on, so they had to play at Kiwanis, because that was one of the few fields that was in good shape.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. While I have it.
On budget.
Right, Parks and Rec budget, right?
Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to commend Mr. Calabrese for a great job he's doing. He's doing more with less. As you could tell, I'm a frequent visitor of the gym there. He's made some really good improvements. Right, thank you, Al.
You can tell, right? Definitely tell.
Boy, tough crowd. Really, he's done a great job, and it's been noticed by a lot of people there, so I commend you.
Thank you.
Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. So in the previous fiscal year, the RTM voted for some maintenance and money for the Sherman Field. Sherman Field did not get that maintenance. So my question is, does that money that was allocated roll into this fiscal year? And when will that money be spent to update the football field, install the sprinklers, and refurbish that field?
I can't answer the question about the money rolling over. I don't believe it does. But the work, I believe it goes back to the general fund. As far as the work being done, the work was put on hold because they are still trying to figure out what they're going to do with the bus loop. And they didn't want to put in the irrigation and tear up the field if they were just going to have to tear it up again to repave somewhere. There was also talks of moving the playground to a different section there, all depending on what that bus loop. So I believe that those are still projects that are in the works.
Because I've been working with Deputy Chief Liddy and Representative Vergara, and all the discussions don't seem to really go anywhere, so I'm just wondering how we can expedite that.
Now, the reworking of the field, that was a capital project, 100,000, so that doesn't go year to year. So that's money that was approved, capital project, it's not going away. We started some work aiming for last summer. We met with, once again, with the PD, met with the principal, had some envisions to try to shift some fields around between the baseball and the...
Increase the parking.
Yeah, but the money, I think, got approved in late February, so we were not able to do it, to get the project initiated last summer, but it will be done this summer.
So that's a capital project, not related to the
Correct,
operating
it's a
budget.
capital project that's been funded.
Thank you.
I know there was a Representative McDermott.
Good evening, Mr. Calabrese. I just wanted to commend you. I'm looking at your revenue line for field rentals, and I'd just like to, you're going from $45,000 budget this year to $85,000 estimate for next year. So I'm assuming you're getting that money out of the travel soccer, lacrosse, football, whatever else has been using the fields over the years, and what I personally believe for how much they charge to play those sports, they should be paying the town of Fairfield a good amount of money to use those fields. And the other problem I always have, as you know, is after second grade, we go from 14 second grade girls soccer teams to 4. And they all go off and play in other sports, so we're not collecting the $50 to play soccer anymore. So we should be getting some money back. Do we get any money from FUSA or these other programs for the rec department, aside from the field rentals?
Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. We are collecting more fees this year from additional groups, Pop Warner, Youth Lacrosse, the baseball, little leagues and stuff. All those groups are being hit this year.
All right, okay. Great. Other questions? I see your chairman of the Parks and Rec is here as well.
He is here, yeah.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, he'll come on up.
Representative Vergara.
Jill Vergara, District 7. I saw something about a revolving fund, and I just didn't understand what that was. If you could explain to me what the revolving fund is?
I'll do my best to explain it to you. The revolving fund is basically, you can look at it as like startup cash. It's how we use all our programs. So we start with about $200,000 in that account. Whatever fees, program fees come in, whether it's youth soccer, basketball, arts and crafts, whatever those programs fees, they all roll into 124. From there, whatever's left over in that account at the end of the year goes back to the general fund.
So each year it does go back into the general fund?
Yeah, anything in excess of 200,000. And we put in I budgeted an extra 80,000 automatically going back into the revenue side of this year from 124.
Do you ever look into the programs that are losing money to decide whether or not they should be cut out?
Yeah, there's only a handful. Teen theater being the big loser, but I don't mean to say it like that. It's a great program. They put on great shows.
Too late, Anthony.
Put in
Emails in the morning from the team.
But from a financial standpoint, we do lose money, but it adds such a benefit to the community that it's worth having. So that's one of the programs that stands out without a doubt.
I was a bit concerned about the skate park.
Well, I can give you an update on what we're trying to do with the skate park right now. You're correct. Skate park is about $12,000 a year, actually probably a little more at this point, and it's just staffing. We don't run any programs down there, but we do staff it 7 days a week during the school year for 3 hours a day during the week. Basically 7 hours on Saturday, 7 hours on Sunday, and then once summer rolls around, it's 7 to 8 hours per day, 7 days a week. I'm working with purchasing right now on putting together a bid that'll hopefully go out within the next couple of weeks to find a company, kind of like we do with our concession stands, where they would pay us a fee and they would manage and operate the skate park.
That sounds great.
So hopefully we'll get some takers. I've been in talks with a couple different groups, but again, it has to go out to the bidding process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Perugini.
Well, skate park staff is mainly responsible to make sure that there's, no BMX bikes in there, scooters, things of that nature. They have to make sure that everybody's wearing their helmets. Those are the big things that the insurance company said, in order to insure this, these are the rules that need to be followed.
I work in orthopedics, and I look at that skate park, I'm like, wow, that's an annuity. So the liability must be immense, because they're young, active people, their bones are strong, but they're high-energy injuries, I presume. I'm down there quite a bit in the summertime boating, never seen any ambulance, but I presume there's a fair amount of injuries as a consequence of the crazy things they do there. Can you elaborate? Is my presumption correct?
Since the skate park's been open, and we opened that skate park back in, I believe, 2009, there's only been a handful of incident reports that have come across our office. One, we've had an ambulance there, but majority of them aren't major injuries, and I want to say it's due to them wearing their helmets. If they're not wearing their helmets, greater chance of injury.
So do they sign a release to use that?
They don't. They don't sign a release. It's just, we treat it just like any of our other fields, free and open to use. It's just, if anybody was going down to Kiwanis baseball field just to play a pickup game and they, twisted an ankle or something, it would be the same.
Well, but the difference is they're falling on concrete, and they're falling at speed. So they're wheeling up and down, they're jumping, so to me, there's a huge difference in the energy imparted to their bones. So I find it quite surprising that there are not that many injuries. Maybe we just have a lot of tough kids in Fairfield with strong bones. But I think that's great. I'm pleased that people are not getting hurt.
Thank you.
Somebody else had their hand up? Okay, Representative Lee.
Representative Lee, District 9. I just wanted to speak in favor of the Biggest Loser, because I was a member of that when it was...
It's a great program.
When I was young and I rode my horsey over to play to the theater, but I agree, I think the theater is a great thing. So, I just had to put it. And as far as the Biggest Loser is, I think Representative Tallman was probably suggesting that I meet him at the gym and enter that program.
Representative Ambrose, Peter.
Yes, Peter Ambrose, District 1. Anthony, can you quantify the amount of additional revenue? Can you quantify the amount of additional revenue that we anticipate receiving this year through the collection of fees?
Through the collection of fees in the overall budget, or we're talking strictly programs?
In your budget.
Just this one?
Overall.
Program fees, in just this budget, I'm looking at about $42,000 extra, additional over what we took in last year. That is mainly field rentals. Essentially just field rentals are where we got that bulk of that money.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Orris.
Hi, Anthony. Robin Orris, District 3. Could you tell me what the line item for $84,000 for fees and professional services covers?
I can. That covers your fireworks for about $45,000, Memorial Day Parade for $20,000, and then $18,000 worth of concerts on the Sherman Green.
And to the Memorial Day Parade and the fireworks, have you looked into sponsorships and how that would deduct from this line item?
We have looked into sponsorships. We have not been successful in the past in getting large sponsorships of that nature. It's a lot easier for us to get the smaller ones, $500, $300. Sometimes we get a company that'll say, "Oh, I'll give you $1,000." So we generally put those towards our concerts, and we try to reduce that line. This line was $6,000 higher last year, I believe. We had $24,000 for concerts, and we cut that down to $18,000. Eventually, I see the concert side going down further, because again, it's a little easier for us to find sponsors for concerts as opposed to the fireworks. But we've got some ideas that we're trying to work on. So.
Thank you.
Maybe one of the universities wants to sponsor our fireworks.
You said it.
Representative Georgiades.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I was looking at the fees for the beach stickers, beach parking, dockage fees, winter storage. I realize these are gross numbers and not directly, they don't directly correlate to percentage increases rather than different amounts of beach stickers and whatnot. Could you discuss your philosophy on increasing beach fees?
70, 50. Okay, we're not on that item yet.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I was going to clarify that, but I would have moved right along.
I'm like, no, I'm not seeing that. Yeah,
Let's
don't
come
worry,
on.
we're.
Okay, I'll be back there, okay. We're almost there, okay.
Exactly. Anybody else on? I know, don't worry. Anybody else on Parks and Rec?
It is.
No, it's not. Don't confuse me. I'm having a hard enough time following my book. Thank you. All right, now we're on 7030 Penfield Pavilion Complex. Yeah. Questions on Penfield, this facility itself, the rentals? Anyone? No. Okay, excellent. I understand the commission voted to increase rentals here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, well, thank you very much. I know we are constantly asking the commission to look at fees, assess them, and do what they think they can, that, you know, in an upwards movement. So thank you. Please take that feedback back to the commission. 7070 Waterfront Marina.
All right, I could address Ms. Georgiades' question here.
Okay, now you want to ask about beaches.
Okay, so mainly the question was about the increase
Percentage increase that you...
in beach stickers.
Beach stickers or just all revenues? So from the beach stickers to the beach parking to the marina fees that you would...
Yep.
see, the percentage increase.
Okay, so marina fees did not go up this year. We will be looking at increasing them hopefully for next season. That's something that I've asked the commission to look into. So that'll be, you know, I'll present them with some numbers and hopefully we'll see where we are. We will compare to other marinas, municipal marinas as well, just to make sure we're not pricing ourselves out of the ballpark. Right now, we do feel that we are very low. Again, that's marina. As far as the beach stickers, we didn't increase the fee this year for seniors, so that's anybody that's over the age of 62. But we did increase $5 for everybody else, all the adult stickers. That is per car. We were asked to bring in additional revenue for this current fiscal year, the one that we're in, not the one that we're talking about tonight. So that was why that $5 was in there, and that brings us in about an extra $100,000 right off the bat. There was one other thing you asked.
Can you explain the process that you decided to increase beach fees but not increase marina fees?
Well, it goes through our commission, the Parks and Recreation Commission. I could ask our commissioner, our chairman to come up as well if he'd like, Scott Walker, and he could probably give you a little feedback on it. But essentially, again, we were asked to increase revenue for this current fiscal year, and that was the area that the commission decided to go with, as opposed to the marina.
Hello, Scott Walker, Chairman of the Parks and Rec Commission. The reason we didn't increase the marina fees this year is because there were a number of years in a row where we did increase them. It was just a percentage thing.
Okay.
So there was some dialogue whether or not we wanted to increase, but the majority of the commission voted against it.
Thank you, because the beach can be uniformly used by all residents, and the marina can only be used by the people that have the slip. So I was just interested in your reasoning for holding down the marina fees.
It wasn't a matter of holding them down as much as it was that we increased them a number of years in a row. And the feedback from the boaters were that the increases were high enough, and we had some negative pushback, so we took that into consideration. We're not opposed to raising them, but, you know, we consider it.
Yeah, percentages work in different ways, so.
Right.
When the fees are low, the percentage seems high, and when
You
the
know,
fees are
for
high,
example, when you raise the,
low.
you know, the parking fee by $5, it's not, we're not looking at that as a percentage. You know, we're looking at it as a nice round number. You know, that might be a steeper increase. Just like when we increased the rates here, I think our fee went up 63% for the rental here, and that was to get us back in middle of the road with our comps. When it was originally rented out, I think we set it at the same price as Jackie Durrell, because we didn't want to rob Peter to pay Paul with, you know, renting this space out and taking revenue from Jackie Durrell, but then we realized this is a nicer property, right? So we
Okay.
looked at our comps and increased it.
Okay, thank you very much.
On the marina, just to follow up to that, I follow this closely, and I know a lot of people here on the RTM have, and it's been a mantra repeatedly, and I do appreciate the fact that you guys have raised fees. How many people are currently on the wait list for a boat slip?
Hundreds. Andrew Kenny's not here, but he could give you the list, but I know it's, depending on which slip size you're talking about, it could be a couple of hundred for like the large slip, and it's more a matter of wait list timing. The large slip wait list, I want to say, is 10 years now. There's a very long wait list on the large. There's a lower number of slips on the medium category, and then on the smaller slip category, there's also a sizable wait list.
And the reason I ask that is with such a large wait list, and I know you get major pushback from those people that are current marina slip owners. I know they show, it's like when the Board of Ed has a redistricting meeting, all the parents come out. When the marina fees are on the docket, all the voters come out. But I really, 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 for me personally, want to encourage you to, I believe you did a cost analysis, you did find out you're low, knowing that there's rules of supply and demand, and I really, really encourage you to reassess and rethink what you're doing down at the marina and increase the fees some more.
We'll definitely look at that.
Thank you. Representative McDermott?
I agree with both Representative Georgiadis and Siaconov. We definitely are on the low side here in Fairfield. I'm a boater myself, so boating is expensive. And people who do boat know that. Now, they're trying to get away on the cheap here by having a town slip. And I said it in the last meeting, these fees need to go up. There is the 10-year waiting list. I mean, it's not like people aren't going to say, somebody's going to say, I'll pay that. I mean, we need to, this is a huge revenue generator for the town. The other thing, we just approved $700,000 to be bonded for dredging, right?
Yes.
I mean, how do we get that paid? I mean, $700,000 is going to be gone like that from these boating fees. I mean, how does that get paid? Granted, the fire and the police do use that channel. I get it. But, I mean, how could we, and I'll get to the golf later, but how can we charge, I don't know, a maintenance fee, $5 per boat or something that goes into a special fund that's directed towards improvements to the docks, dredging, or whatever the bill is? Because I'm sure, I mean, the seniors don't want to pay for the Board of Ed. It's a little different. But boating is a luxury. Not everybody gets to have a boat. Not everybody gets to use the marina. So we really should be pushing this. I get that it went up, but boating's expensive. When those docks need to be fixed, when pilings need to be fixed, it's going to be on our dime, right?
I understand that. The way I understand the way the budget process works, if you wanted us to charge a fee, say for future dredging, that's money that wouldn't stay within the marina or within the Parks and Rec department. That would, anything in excess of the $200,000 would go right back into your general fund. So I understand we're not running it like a private marina. I understand where our pricing is, and I wouldn't necessarily say we're not the lowest, and we're aware that we're somewhere in the middle. We're also aware that there is going to be capital projects going on down there, and Mr. Michelangelo could speak to that. At some point, the docks are old. I'm also a boater.
and I understand it is a nice asset for the town, and I understand the pricing of it. But, and I can also take into consideration that supply and demand, but I'm not sure that's necessarily where we want to be. If the feedback from the town is we want every last dollar out of it, and we want it to be better than Captain's Cove, then we could talk about that. We could talk about that as a commission, but that's never been the directive that our commission has received.
Well, I think we're in a different position right now with what's going on financially, with the state passing it down to us, and we have to figure out, these are huge revenue generators for our town. And I worked in marine construction in college, so I've put in pilings, I've put in docks, I've built docks, so I understand it, I know it, and like I said, I have my own boat, and I know how expensive that is just to store it, let alone run it, so.
I understand that.
Representative Farnon and then Representative Perugine.
I would just like to, two things, echo the sentiments that you've already heard, and also you're getting beat up for a volunteer position, so I'd like to thank you for what you do. With that said, I will continue the...
I'm not beating them up,
That's fine.
Hammer away.
It's fine.
I would just suggest to the body that, and if there is a general consensus, i.e. 50% or more of us who believe that this is an ongoing issue with, 10 years waiting list and hasn't been addressed for some time, I think the only way for us as a body to show our displeasure would be potentially to make a cut. I know that doesn't sound like the greatest, but from a strategic perspective, I think that's something we would have to consider either this year or next year if at some point this isn't addressed. But thank you.
Fair enough. And again, it wasn't as if it...
Representative Perugine, then I'm coming to this side of the table. Hold on.
Filter 9, in full disclosure, I am a boater as well, and in District 9, many of my constituents use that marina, and I would respectfully disagree with my colleagues. I think you've done a wonderful job in pricing it equitably. It's not the low, it's not the high, and it has undergone substantial increase in a number of years, if I'm not mistaken. That's
correct.
Double digits. You probably know the numbers better than I do. It's probably 25 to 30%.
It was double digits for a few years in a row.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, the marina operates profitably, correct?
I can't speak to that. I believe it does, but I can't speak to the operation side of it. Yes, it does.
It does operate properly. And if I'm not mistaken, you do not have to be a slip owner to utilize the marina.
In what regard?
You could launch a boat, you could use them, right. So it's not just the slip owners that could use the marina. Anybody who has a permit can use the marina. So again, respectfully, I disagree. I think you've done a fantastic job. But the question I want to pose is, have you or your commission looked at any alternate means of increasing revenue? So I'm down there in the summertime. I see people dodging the beach passes all the time. All the time. They park in that special area where anybody could go to park, right? That public space. And they walk, and they carry their coolers. Likewise, in Veterans Park, they dump up everybody at the beach. Even the people working there look the other way, or perhaps they don't want to assert themselves to stop them, but they dump off loads of people who constantly use our beaches. Now, I hear from my constituents, likewise, not only do they dodge the fees, but they're not oftentimes the most respectful individuals. They're not stakeholders. Most of them do not live in Fairfield. They're not respectful to the neighbors. They do arguably some illicit things. Have your commission looked at raising revenues or somehow policing that so that we could capture those fees? And likewise, I know a number of my constituents who think out of the box have proposed means to collect more revenues, wet docking, expanding part of the marina to include larger boats. As mentioned, there's a huge waiting list. I would like your commission and you folks to explore some of those other avenues to increase revenues rather than increasing the fees, which have increased significantly over the past 5 years.
We will definitely look at that. And with regard to the parking that you're referring to, I believe that's a matter of, that's an open space area. So even though you don't need to have a marina pass to park over by open space. So I know what you're talking about. People go over there, they park, and then they'll walk over to the beach. That's typically not the marina users. It's people going to the beach. That is not under our review as far as enforcement. That's not something that we can enforce. And again, the commission is definitely going to look at the fees and make sure that we're doing it equitably, but there's also, as you can appreciate, there's pushback from the boating community. I understand that we're possibly cutting back some of the policing services this year. Is that correct? That's correct. Where we provided 24-hour policing services. We're not doing that for the 2017 season. So that's the kind of dialogue that we do have with the voters. They're going to say, okay, as you can appreciate, we're raising fees 10%. And they're going to say, fine, you're increasing fees, but you're cutting back services. So it is a balancing act. Are we running it as a for-profit marina, like a Brewster's yacht yard, which if we do have fees that are in line with that kind of marina, people are going to expect services that are commensurate with those fees. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, indeed. I think you do a wonderful job, and I do think it's fair. But I mean, that's another issue. So we're asking to increase the fees. No, we're not going to have people policing it. So the people coming, and those folks are out of town. I mean, if you hang out there, you realize that they are not stakeholders in our community. They're not oftentimes the most upstanding citizens. They're not respectful. So oftentimes they're intoxicated. They litter. They're reckless. And so those are the folks that are coming in that are taking advantage of that. So granted, it's public space, but then they're meandering through the marina to the beach instead of paying to use our beach. I mean, we're all paying to use the beach, right? We pay our taxes. So to me, that's an issue that I would like someone to dig into. And then beyond that, there have been a number of creative options proposed to help increase revenue without increasing the slip fees, which have increased significantly over the past 5 years. So I'm not sure if you've entertained them seriously or not, but I would encourage you to sit down with those individuals, because they're coming from a position of experience, and I think there's some pretty good ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Pai.
As far as the revenue goes, I agree with Bill to the extent that I think your fees have increased quite significantly. And the reason we have a town marina, is so taxpayers can have a reasonable rate. This is to open up to the market. Doesn't make any sense. Because these people that are at the marina are also taxpayers, and I have a boat down there, and I'm a taxpayer, okay? And I don't have any kids in the school system yet. I pay my taxes, okay? So that's my one little caveat here. I have a marina slip, okay? It took me 6 years to get it, but I'm not complaining. But this thing about let's raise the fees, market value, that's ridiculous, okay? I mean, Norwalk has a town marina. They have very reasonable rates there too, because it's for the town residents, okay? And as far as our town goes, we're an economically diverse town. Not everybody is a multimillionaire and lives in Greenfield Hill. Okay, we have people over Andrassy and the other side of town, and they want boats. It's first come, first serve, okay? So if you're going to start raising the fees, who's you going to have? You're going to have a bunch of, excuse my expression, rich people who are going to be able to afford the marina fee, okay? And I don't think that's very fair. Okay, the same thing for our school systems, we have 5% free and reduced lunch at our school systems. People don't realize that. At Ward, we have 8% free and reduced lunch, okay? Not everybody in town is loaded, okay? So we want to reach out to everybody in town and make it a fair system. Don't forget, these are people who are at that marina are taxpayers, okay? We're not dealing with people who live in Weston or Westport, okay? These are Fairfield residents, and I think the marina has done a great job in keeping the fees down so everybody can enjoy it. Thank you.
Representative Lynch, did you have your hand up before? No. Oh, okay. So I just wanted to make sure I got the people that didn't speak. Go ahead, Mr.
Representative Georgiadis, I just want to thank the town and thank the Park and Rec Department, because over the past few years, I live in the beach area as well. I have a lot of people walk by my house to get to to Penfield Pavilion. The town has done a very good job. They have increased the ticket rate to the point where if they park illegally, it's the same cost as if they parked at the Penfield parking lot. That's been reduced the number of people that walk by my house tremendously. So I just wanted to say thank you to the town, to the Park and Rec for listening to the issues that my constituents have brought to me, and thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else on waterfront and marina? Okay.
Me too.
All right, go ahead, Pardon.
I would just ask the commission to consider, I would just ask them if you guys would potentially consider, they do this, I've seen this in New Jersey and other places, where instead of doing a pass for your vehicle, it's a pass per person, where you would basically buy, for everyone who was on the beach, they would have to have a beach pass,
and I've seen that as an effective way in other municipalities. I'm not saying it's the right approach, but something maybe you'd want to just consider looking into.
We can consider something along those lines, however, we can't limit who can come into the beach. We can't charge a walk-in rate. We have to keep our beaches free and open to the public. So that's why if they do park down at Bob's and they walk that mile down to the beach, we can't charge them at the gate. We can only charge for their cars to park there.
The law is different than it is
Yeah.
in,
Is that by state statute? Is
Yeah,
that
it's like-
correct?
No, we've
Okay.
received federal financing, federal.
Yeah, it has to do with the
Okay.
federal funds.
All right, that makes sense then, yeah. Just, may I ask one more?
Oh, sure.
Or just a quick, just to echo Representative Pine's sentiments, I agree. It should be accessible to all people, not the super wealthy who can only afford the big boats, but it should be accessible to all. I think
We
you
are
guys have done a
beating a
wonderful
dead
job.
horse.
No,
Thank
but one more thing, but as Representative Pine stated, people have waited 8 to 10 years. They're stakeholders in the community, they're taxpayers, they've paid their dues, so I think they should be entitled to that nice amenity in our community. Thanks very much. Horse Peyton.
I trust that the commission can find a good balance so that everyone has access. I think personally you have a little bit of wiggle room. Representative Lee.
Representative Lee, District 9. Just a quick question. Are the boat slips restricted to town residents, or are they open to anybody in the world?
Town residents only.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Marina? Seeing none. Next item. 7111 Carl Dickman Golf Course.
Golf course.
This is the par 3. Anyone on the par 3?
No, I'm not on.
I'm going to ask Peter Grace to join me at the table in case there are questions.
I don't see
Mr.
any
Wolf?
questions on the par 3. 7113 H. Smith Richardson Golf Course. Welcome, Mr. Grace.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem.
Do you have a vote?
There's only a basketball game on tonight.
Go Heels. Anybody have any questions on Smith Richardson? Representative Wall.
see right here,
It's Jay Walk, District 5. First, I haven't heard anybody say to our new Parks Director, Anthony Calabrese, congratulations. It's well deserved.
Thank you.
Is
welcome.
it now official?
It's close.
I don't know.
Oh, that's
I keep putting
I
the
might have to
good,
defer that question.
I keep putting the
That's why I
good,
didn't bring it up, but like.
I keep putting the good word in.
I appreciate it.
Just to clarify for everyone, we have offered Anthony the position. He's accepted. We have a few deals to work out, or details to work out, including the start date. So it's stay tuned to a TV channel near you, and it'll be coming to you shortly.
It was well deserved.
Thank you.
I have a question on, like Representative Lee talking about how he's for maintenance, so am I. So let's go back to what you guys need. I see right here, this is a touchy situation when it comes to a lawnmower. We went back a couple years ago about that, so is there anything, so here, let me just go to this point. So if our body cuts your budget, not that it's going to, hopefully, what would not get done? Some major project?
Before I let Mr. Grace chime in on this one, let me just point out that the $60,000 lawnmower has already been removed from our budget. We've also reduced special department supplies by another $5,000. I believe we reduced maintenance and repairs of building and grounds by another $5,000, and we cut all seasonal overtime. So already, this budget has been slashed by $80,000 right out the gate. But now I'll turn it over to Mr. Grace. Chop, chop, chop.
So not having the lawnmower that you guys need is gonna put you back, I mean,
Well, it was gonna be a replacement mower.
Okay.
We still have the mower that was gonna replace, and, we've put...
and a couple of years ago, I think we approved another mower.
Oh, well, there's all sorts of different types of mowers. I'm more than
Okay.
welcome to come up to my maintenance facility, see how many mowers we
I
have
like
up
to
there.
see that. So the bunkers and everything else is, we don't really have any major projects coming up for the golf courses?
We approved the pumping station, which is gonna go through, and, the 10-year plan has been pushed back a year, so, We have 3 years left on that 10-year plan.
I'm good, thank you.
Anyone else for Smith Richardson's budget? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for being here this evening. That concludes the hearing portion this evening. It's up to your committee chairman if you want to get together with your committee and discuss anything that was discussed tonight as a committee. Otherwise, we will hold over till tomorrow. Please send me your,
Are you going bowling?
place card.